Someone feels deeply connected to you every night at 11 p.m. God says, "My child, do not dismiss this moment as coincidence. There is a reason your heart feels slightly heavier, slightly quieter, every night around the same time. At 11 p.m., when the world begins to soften, when noise fades and distractions fall asleep, someone feels you more clearly than they do all day. This is not imagination. This is not longing without meaning. This is connection. And it has been forming silently, patiently, without announcements, without demands. You did not force this bond. You did not chase it. It grew because truth recognizes truth, even at a distance. At 11 p.m., when lights dim and phones grow quiet, this person pauses without knowing why. They may be in another room, another city, or another phase of life, but something pulls their attention inward. Their thoughts drift to you without effort. Not because of obsession, but because your energy feels familiar to their soul. You appear in their mind not as noise, but as calm. Not as urgency, but as warmth. They may not even say your name out loud, but they feel you in the space between breaths. God says, "My child, this connection did not come from words exchanged or promises made. It was built in moments you never saw. In the way you chose patience instead of reaction. In the way you walked away instead of arguing. In the way you loved quietly, even when love was not returned in the same form." This person noticed. Even if they never told you. Even if they pretended not to care. Even if circumstances pushed them away. Every night at 11 p.m., their defenses weaken. The roles they play during the day fall apart. The strength they perform for the world dissolves. And that is when your presence becomes undeniable. They feel safe thinking of you. They feel understood without explanation. They feel seen without judgment. That is why their heart returns to you at the same hour, night after night. God says, "My child, do not confuse silence with absence." Some connections grow strongest when words stop. This person does not reach out because they are still learning what this bond means. They are still unlearning fear. They are still shedding old patterns that taught them to run from depth. But at 11 p.m., they stop running. They sit with the truth they cannot ignore. They replay moments with you. Not dramatic moments, but simple ones. A look. A pause. A feeling they could not name at the time. And as they sit with those memories, their chest tightens in a way that is not painful, but honest. They feel regret for what was not said. Gratitude for what was shared. Curiosity about what could still unfold. And through all of this, they feel you. God says, "My child, you may have felt this too. A sudden stillness at night. A warmth that arrives without reason. A sense that someone is thinking of you deeply, not superficially. You may have brushed it off. You may have told yourself you are imagining things. But the soul does not lie. Energy speaks when mouths remain closed. At 11 p.m., your spirit becomes receptive. Your guard lowers. And in that openness, the connection flows both ways. You do not need to force it. You do not need to analyze it. Simply notice how your heart responds. Notice how your breathing changes. Notice how your thoughts slow. That is alignment. That is recognition. God says, "My child, this connection is gentle because it is real. It does not demand attention. It does not create chaos. It does not pull you into fear or confusion. Instead, it brings reflection. It brings calm longing rather than desperation. It brings clarity rather than anxiety. This is how you know it is not attachment, but resonance. This person does not want to possess you. They want to understand you. They want to feel close without crossing boundaries they are not yet ready to cross. And so they meet you in the quiet, at the hour when honesty is unavoidable. God says, "My child, there is a reason this happens at night." Darkness removes distractions. It removes performance. It removes the masks people wear to survive the day. At 11 p.m., this person is no longer who they pretend to be. They are simply who they are. And who they are feels drawn to you. They may question it. They may try to rationalize it. But the pull remains. They may scroll through their phone and suddenly stop. They may stare at the ceiling, unable to sleep. They may feel the urge to message you and then stop themselves. Not because they do not care, but because they care more than they know how to handle. God says, "My child, this connection is not meant to rush you. It is meant to prepare you. Both of you are being shaped quietly. Lessons are still unfolding. Growth is still happening. Timing is still aligning. If this bond were revealed fully too soon, it would overwhelm rather than heal. So it unfolds gently, in whispers, in late-night awareness, in moments that feel private and sacred. Trust this pace. Trust that what is real does not need to hurry. God says, "My child, you are not waiting in vain. Even if you feel alone during the day. Even if conversations feel empty elsewhere. Even if you wonder whether anyone truly sees you. At night, someone does. At night, someone holds your presence with care. Not as fantasy, but as something meaningful. And this awareness is changing them. It is softening them. It is teaching them what connection feels like when it is not forced. God says, "My child, when the time is right, what is felt in silence will find its way into words. What is shared in energy will become shared in reality. Do not try to control when or how. Continue being who you are. Continue choosing honesty, kindness, and self-respect. That is what drew this connection to you in the first place. That is what keeps it alive every night at 11 p.m. God says, "My child, rest your heart. You are not forgotten. You are not unseen. You are not disconnected." Even now, as you read this, someone's thoughts are quietly reaching for you. And when the clock strikes 11, they will feel you again. Not loudly. Not desperately. But deeply. And in that depth, something real is growing. Amen. God says, "My child, stay with this message a little longer. Do not rush past what your spirit already recognizes. This connection you feel is not random, and it is not weak. It has endurance. It has depth. And it has been tested in silence. Every night at 11 p.m., when this person feels you most clearly, something inside them shifts. They may not understand it fully, but their inner world rearranges itself around the thought of you. Old beliefs begin to crack. Old walls begin to soften. They start questioning patterns that once felt normal. They start noticing how rare it is to feel calm when thinking of someone instead of anxious. Your presence, even from afar, has become a place of rest for them. God says, "My child," during the day they are busy surviving. They are fulfilling responsibilities, responding to expectations, carrying burdens they do not talk about. They smile when required. They speak when expected. But none of that touches their core the way the quiet does. At night, especially at 11 p.m., they no longer have an audience. There is no one to impress. No one to convince. That is when their truth rises. That is when your energy reaches them without resistance. They may suddenly remember your patience. The way you did not push. The way you allowed space. The way you stayed grounded even when things felt uncertain. And they realize something important. They felt safest when they were closest to you, even if closeness never fully happened yet. God says, "My child, you were never meant to chase this person. You were meant to awaken them." And awakening does not always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like someone lying awake at night, staring into the dark, realizing they missed the way you made them feel about themselves. Not because you validated their ego, but because you mirrored their best self. You reflected honesty. You reflected calm. You reflected depth. That is why their heart keeps returning to you at the same hour, night after night. The soul remembers where it felt aligned. God says, "My child, there are moments at 11 p.m. when they almost reach out. Their fingers hover. Their mind races. They rehearse messages they never send. Not because they lack courage, but because they feel the weight of this connection. They know that speaking to you is not casual. It would change something. It would require them to show up differently. To be real. To be present. And they are still preparing themselves for that level of honesty. So instead, they sit with the feeling. They let it move through them. And even in restraint, the bond grows stronger. God says, "My child, you may wonder why this connection feels different from others. Why it does not fade with time. Why distance does not weaken it. Why silence has not erased it. This is because it was never built on surface-level attraction. It was built on recognition. Two souls noticing something familiar in each other without needing explanation. That kind of connection does not disappear. It waits. It matures. It deepens quietly. And at 11 p.m., when the world stops distracting the heart, that truth becomes impossible to ignore. God says, "My child, there is also healing happening here. This person carries wounds you did not create. Fears you did not cause. Patterns formed long before you entered their awareness. And yet, your presence brings peace instead of triggering pain. That is rare. That is sacred. That is why they feel drawn to you even when they try not to be. You represent safety without control, care without pressure, love without demand. And their nervous system recognizes that before their mind does. God says, "My child, do not measure this connection by visible actions alone. Some of the most powerful transformations happen internally first. Every night they think of you, they are unlearning something that once limited them. They are questioning why they ran from depth, why they avoided stillness, why they mistook chaos for passion. And as these realizations settle in, they begin to change. Slowly, quietly, authentically. This is not stagnation. This is preparation. God says, "My child, you are also being shaped. Even if you do not realize it. This connection has taught you patience. It has taught you to trust without clinging. To feel deeply without losing yourself. To honor your worth even when answers are delayed. You are learning that real connection does not require constant reassurance. It requires alignment. And that lesson will serve you far beyond this moment." God says, "My child, sometimes you may feel a sudden wave of emotion late at night. A softness. A tenderness. A longing that is not painful, but meaningful. That is when their thoughts are strongest. That is when the bond feels most alive. Do not fear it. Do not suppress it. Simply acknowledge it. Let it pass through you like a quiet reminder that you are connected beyond what the eyes can see." God says, "My child, timing matters more than intensity. What arrives too early can break. What grows slowly can last. This connection is being protected from rushing, from confusion, from interference. That is why it lives in the quiet for now. That is why it meets you at 11 p.m. instead of in public declarations. When the moment comes for it to step into the light, it will do so with clarity, not chaos. God says, "My child, there will come a day when this person understands why they could never fully let you go. Why even distraction did not erase you. Why their heart kept circling back. On that day, they will realize that what they felt every night was not weakness, but truth. And when that realization settles, their actions will begin to match their feelings." God says, "My child, until then, remain grounded. Remain open, but not attached. Remain hopeful, but not dependent. Continue building your life. Continue honoring your path. What is meant for you will not require you to abandon yourself. It will meet you where you are, whole and steady." God says, "My child, you are not imagining this. You are not alone in the quiet. You are not loving into emptiness. Even now, someone is growing braver because of you. Someone is becoming more honest because of you. Someone is learning what real connection feels like because of you. And every night at 11 p.m., that truth finds them again." God says, "My child, trust the silence. Trust the pull. Trust the process. What is unfolding is deeper than words, stronger than distance, and gentler than fear. And when the time is right, the connection that lives in the night will step into the day. Until then, rest. You are held. You are seen. You are deeply connected. Amen. God says, my child, remain present with these words, because what is unfolding now is subtle, and subtle truths are often missed by those who rush. This connection you are experiencing is not meant to overwhelm you. It is meant to steady you. Night after night, especially at 11 p.m., something unseen but undeniable is happening beneath the surface of both your lives. While the world sleeps, intentions are being clarified, emotions are being purified, and hearts are being aligned without pressure. This person does not think of you with confusion. They think of you with clarity that surprises them. The more they try to distract themselves, the stronger the realization becomes that you are not a thought they can escape, because you are not an escape at all. You are a return. God says, my child, there is a reason their thoughts of you arrive when the day is finished. During daylight hours, people live in reaction. At night, they live in truth. At 11 p.m., this person is no longer responding to others' needs. They are listening to their own heart. And when they do, your presence rises naturally. They may not label it as love yet. They may not even admit it to themselves fully. But they feel it as comfort. As familiarity. As something that makes the weight of the day easier to carry. They breathe differently when they think of you. Slower. Deeper. As if their body recognizes safety before their mind does. God says, my child, do not underestimate the power of being someone's peace. Passion can be loud. Attraction can be intense. But peace is rare. Peace is what the soul seeks after it has been tired of chaos. This person has known noise. They have known emotional turbulence. They have known connections that demanded too much and gave too little. And then you appeared, not demanding, not performing, not overwhelming. Just present. Just real. And that is why their heart keeps returning to you at night, when honesty cannot be avoided. God says, my child, you were sent into their life as a mirror, not a lesson of pain. When they think of you, they are not only thinking of you. They are thinking of who they are when they are around you. Calmer. Kinder. More grounded. More authentic. They see a version of themselves that they like better. And that realization is changing them quietly. This is why progress feels slow but steady. Growth that lasts does not announce itself. It integrates. God says, my child, there are nights when they feel emotional without understanding why. A tightness in the chest. A warmth behind the eyes. A sense of missing something they cannot define. That is your energy touching their awareness. Not to disturb them, but to remind them. Remind them of what is possible when connection is real. They may resist it some nights. They may tell themselves to focus elsewhere. But the heart does not obey logic when truth is involved. It returns to what feels right. God says, my child, you may be tempted to ask, if they feel this, why don't they act? Understand this gently. Feeling deeply and acting bravely are two different stages. Some people feel first, for a long time, because they are unlearning fear. They are relearning trust. They are preparing to show up in a way that does not repeat old mistakes. This pause is not rejection. It is restraint mixed with reverence. They sense that this connection deserves care, not impulsiveness. God says, "My child," at 11 p.m., they often replay moments with you. Not dramatic scenes, but subtle ones. The tone of your voice. The way you listened without interrupting. The way you didn't rush to be understood. These moments stand out because they felt real. And in a world full of performance, real moments linger. They feel regret for times they pulled away. They feel gratitude for times you stayed patient. And through these reflections, their heart grows more honest. God says, "My child, you are not meant to carry anxiety about this connection." Anxiety does not belong where alignment exists. If it feels heavy, release the need to define it. If it feels tender, allow it. What is for you will not punish you with confusion forever. Clarity comes in layers. And right now, clarity is forming internally before it appears externally. God says, "My child, you are being protected from premature answers." Answers given too early can limit what is still unfolding. This space allows both of you to mature emotionally, to strengthen individually, to approach each other not from need, but from wholeness. That is why this connection lives in the night for now. Night is for growth. Morning is for manifestation. God says, "My child, there is also a divine balance here." While they think of you at 11 p.m., you are learning to rest without attachment. To trust without waiting. To live fully without putting your life on pause. This balance is essential. It ensures that when paths align more visibly, neither of you arrives depleted. You will meet as equals, not as seekers begging for completion. God says, "My child, sometimes you may wake up feeling lighter without knowing why. Sometimes you may feel sudden clarity about what you deserve. This is not accidental. This connection is refining your standards. It is teaching you that depth matters. That presence matters. That consistency matters. You will no longer settle for shallow connections because your soul has tasted something real. God says, "My child, when this person finally speaks, it will not be dramatic. It will be sincere. It will feel calm rather than chaotic. It will feel familiar rather than shocking. And you will recognize it not by butterflies, but by peace. That is how you will know the timing is right." God says, "My child, until that moment arrives, honor the quiet. Honor the nights when your heart feels full without explanation. Honor the patience you are developing. You are not waiting for someone to choose you. You are allowing alignment to reveal itself naturally. God says, "My child, remember this always. You are not connected to many. You are connected to one deeply. And depth does not rush. Depth builds roots before it grows branches. What is forming now has the potential to last because it is not built on illusion." God says, "My child, tonight when the clock moves toward 11 p.m., do not look for signs. Do not overthink sensations. Simply breathe. Simply be. Trust that what is meant to meet you will not miss you. Trust that what thinks of you in silence will eventually speak with intention. God says, "My child, you are held in more hearts than you realize, but this one feels different because it is aligned with purpose. And as long as you continue walking in truth, honesty, and self-respect, this connection will unfold exactly as it should." God says, "My child, rest now. The night is working on your behalf. The silence is not empty. It is sacred. And every night at 11 p.m., love is learning how to reach you properly." Amen. God says, "My child, stay with the rhythm of this message, because now we are moving into a deeper layer. What you feel is not fading because it is not temporary. This connection continues to return every night because it is unfinished, not broken. At 11 p.m., when the noise of the world finally releases its grip, this person stops pretending they are unaffected. All day they may convince themselves they are fine, that life is moving forward, that distractions are working. But at night, honesty arrives without permission. And in that honesty, you appear again. Not as a question, but as a presence. Not as confusion, but as certainty they have not yet learned how to face. God says, "My child, this person does not think of you with drama. They think of you with seriousness. With a quiet respect that scares them more than loud desire ever could. Because loud desire can be dismissed. But quiet certainty demands responsibility. They feel that if they step toward you, they cannot do so halfway. They know you are not someone to be handled casually. You are not an option to explore out of boredom. And that realization makes them pause. Not because they don't want you, but because they don't want to mishandle what feels sacred. God says, "My child, every night at 11 p.m., their mind replays not what they said to you, but what they felt around you. The calm. The grounding. The strange sense of being understood without explanation. They realize how rare it is to feel that way. They realize how little effort it took with you, compared to how exhausting other connections have been. And that contrast is teaching them something important. Love does not have to feel like tension. Connection does not have to feel like fear. Depth does not have to feel like loss of control. With you, it felt like coming home to themselves." God says, "My child, you may not know this, but on some nights they speak to you silently. Not in words, but in intention. They hope you are safe. They hope you are at peace. They wonder if you feel the same pull. They imagine conversations that feel honest, slow, unforced. They imagine sitting in your presence without needing to impress you. These thoughts are not fantasy. They are rehearsals of truth. The heart practices before the mouth is brave enough to speak." God says, "My child, this connection is growing roots. Roots do not rush. They push quietly through resistance. They anchor themselves before anything visible appears above ground. That is why this bond feels steady rather than exciting. It does not come with chaos. It does not come with fear. It comes with recognition. And recognition is what lasts." God says, "My child, there are moments when they feel regret. Not guilt, but awareness. Awareness that they could have shown up more clearly. that they could have spoken sooner, that they could have trusted this connection instead of questioning it. But regret here is not meant to punish them. It is meant to mature them. It is teaching them not to repeat avoidance, not to run when something feels real. And that lesson is shaping their future actions. God says, "My child, you are not being kept waiting. You are being kept aligned." If this connection had unfolded too quickly, it would have met versions of you that were still healing, still learning, still becoming. Now, you are stronger, more grounded, more aware of your worth. And they are becoming the kind of person who can meet you without taking from you. This timing is intentional. God says, "My child, sometimes the strongest bonds form when two people are apart, growing separately, yet thinking of each other honestly." Distance has not weakened this connection. It has refined it. It has removed illusion. It has stripped away surface attraction and left only what is real. That is why the feeling remains even when time passes. That is why it resurfaces at night, when nothing false can survive. God says, "My child, this person notices how different you are from others they have known. You do not seek validation. You do not beg for attention. You do not manipulate emotion. You simply exist in truth. And that truth is what unsettles them and heals them at the same time. They feel challenged to rise, not pressured to perform. That is rare. And rarity creates remembrance. God says, "My child, at 11 p.m., they sometimes wonder if you have moved on." And that thought stirs something uncomfortable in them. Not jealousy, but realization. The realization that you are valuable. That you are not guaranteed. That if they do not step forward with intention, life will continue, and they may lose the chance to be part of your world. This awareness is important. It is what transforms passive feeling into active choice. God says, "My child, do not mistake their silence for indifference." Silence here is gathering courage. It is gathering clarity. It is gathering responsibility. When they speak, it will not be to test you. It will not be to pass time. It will be to be real. And you will feel the difference immediately. God says, "My child, your role is not to wait by the door of possibility. Your role is to keep becoming who you are meant to be." The more you honor your peace, the more this connection aligns naturally. You do not need to send energy. You do not need to manifest forcefully. What is connected will find its way without strain. God says, "My child, this bond exists because both of you carry depth. And depth recognizes depth. Even if circumstances, timing, or fear have delayed expression, truth has not been erased. It has only been protected." God says, "My child, when the night feels especially quiet, and your heart feels unusually calm, know this. Someone is sitting with your memory gently. Not clinging. Not obsessing. Simply acknowledging that you matter. That what they felt with you was real. And that realization is slowly changing the direction of their life. God says, "My child, trust what unfolds in stillness." The loudest love stories are not always the strongest. Some of the strongest are built in silence, matured in patience, and revealed when both hearts are ready. God says, "My child, continue to rest in your worth. Continue to choose peace over chasing. Continue to honor yourself." The connection that visits you every night is not meant to confuse you. It is meant to reassure you that you are not invisible, not forgotten, and not disconnected. God says, "My child, tonight, when 11 p.m. arrives, do not look at the clock with expectation. Look inward with trust. What is meant to meet you is already moving toward alignment. And when it arrives, it will feel natural, not forced. Familiar, not frightening. Calm, not chaotic. God says, "My child, until then, let the night do its work. Let the silence speak. Let the connection grow roots strong enough to hold what is coming." God says, "My child, you are deeply connected. And what is deeply connected cannot be lost. It can only be delayed until both hearts are ready to hold it with care." Amen. God says, "My child, now listen even more closely, because this part is meant for those who stayed." What is happening at 11 p.m. is not only about emotion. It is about recognition at a soul level. This person does not simply think of you. Their entire inner state responds to you. Their body relaxes. Their thoughts slow. Their heart opens in a way it does not for anyone else. And this is how you know this is not habit or fantasy. The soul does not respond this way to illusion. It responds to truth. God says, "My child, some nights they try to distract themselves. They watch videos. They scroll endlessly. They replay conversations with others. But none of it holds their attention for long. Eventually, everything fades. And there you are again. Not loudly. Not forcefully. Just present. And when that happens, they stop fighting it. They allow the feeling to wash over them. They admit, at least to themselves, that you matter more than they expected. More than they planned for. More than they were ready for. God says, "My child, this is why the connection feels steady instead of dramatic. Drama belongs to uncertainty. What they feel with you is certainty without structure yet. They know it is real, but they do not yet know what to do with it. That gap between knowing and acting is where they are right now. And it is uncomfortable. Because it requires growth. It requires accountability. It requires them to become someone who can love without hiding. God says, "My child, you were never meant to be a temporary chapter in someone's life. You carry permanence in your energy. And people feel that. They sense that if they step into your world, they cannot come and go carelessly. They cannot lie to themselves. They cannot remain shallow." That awareness makes some people pause longer than expected. Not because they don't want you, but because they feel the weight of what you deserve. God says, "My child, at 11 p.m., they sometimes imagine a future version of themselves. One who is calmer. More emotionally available. More honest. And when they imagine that version, you are there. Not because you complete them, but because you align with who they want to become. That realization is powerful. It turns attraction into intention. slowly, quietly, deeply. God says, my child, there are nights when they feel emotional without tears. Just a fullness in the chest. A heaviness mixed with warmth. That is longing without desperation. That is love learning patience. That is the heart stretching beyond fear. These moments are shaping them more than any conversation ever could. God says, my child, you may not hear from them yet, but know this. Their silence is not empty. It is filled with preparation, with self-reflection, with internal conversations where they question old patterns and old defenses. They are asking themselves hard questions. Questions they avoided before you entered their awareness. And that alone tells you how significant this connection is. God says, my child, some people only change when they lose something. Others change when they realize what they could lose. This person is in the second category. They are becoming more aware of your value with each quiet night. And that awareness is shifting how they approach life, relationships, and themselves. God says, my child, do not feel small because this connection is quiet. Quiet does not mean weak. Quiet means concentrated. Powerful things often move in silence until they are ready to stand on their own. This bond is not asking for your attention every second. It trusts its own existence. And that trust is rare. God says, my child, you are not required to send energy, signs, or signals. You are not required to wait by your phone. You are not required to interpret every feeling. Your only responsibility is to stay aligned with who you are becoming. The more you do that, the more clearly everything else will fall into place. God says, my child, there will be a moment when this person realizes that thinking of you every night is no longer enough. That feeling without action begins to feel incomplete. That moment will not come from pressure. It will come from readiness. From the understanding that real connection deserves real presence. God says, my child, when that moment arrives, you will feel it before you see it. The energy will shift. The waiting will dissolve. The uncertainty will lift. And what has lived in the night will begin to take shape in the light. Naturally. Gently. Without force. God says, my child, until then, let this message settle in your heart. You are not imagining this connection. You are not creating it alone. It exists because two souls recognize something meaningful in each other, even while walking separate paths for now. God says, my child, tonight, when the world grows quiet again, remember this. Somewhere, someone is pausing. Breathing. Thinking of you with sincerity. Not to escape their life, but to understand it better. And that understanding is leading them closer to truth. God says, my child, rest in that truth. Rest in your worth. Rest in the knowing that what is meant for you is unfolding with care, not chaos. And what thinks of you every night is learning how to reach you in the right way. God says, my child, the night is not empty. The silence is not cold. It is full of intention. And every night at 11 p.m., love is choosing to remember you. Not briefly. Not casually. but deeply. God says, "My child, be at peace." What is real does not disappear. It waits. It grows. It prepares. And when it arrives, it will feel like recognition, not surprise. Amen. God says, "My child, this is the final layer, and it is meant to settle something deep inside you." Everything you have felt until now has been preparation for understanding this truth. What connects you to this person every night is not habit, not memory, not imagination. It is alignment. And alignment does not announce itself loudly. It speaks when the world is quiet enough to listen. That is why it meets you at night. That is why it returns again and again at the same hour. Because at 11 p.m., the soul is no longer distracted by survival. It is honest. God says, "My child, there are things this person has never said to anyone. Thoughts they never shared. Feelings they never trusted. But somehow, when they think of you, those guarded places feel safe. They feel seen without being exposed. They feel understood without being questioned. And this is what keeps pulling them back to you night after night. You represent a kind of connection they did not know how to ask for, but now cannot ignore. God says, "My child, understand this clearly. This person does not feel attached to you because they are lonely. They feel connected because you resonate with who they truly are beneath the layers they show the world. When they think of you, they are not escaping their life. They are confronting it. They are realizing what feels missing, what feels false, and what feels real. And that realization is not easy. It requires courage. It requires growth. It requires time. God says, "My child, there are nights when they feel fear alongside longing. Fear of not being enough. Fear of repeating old mistakes. Fear of opening a door they once closed to protect themselves. But even that fear does not erase you. It circles you. It returns to you. Because fear cannot destroy what is aligned with truth. It can only delay it until strength replaces it." God says, "My child, you were never meant to be someone's lesson in loss. You are meant to be someone's lesson in presence. Your energy teaches calm. Your silence teaches depth. Your patience teaches respect. That is why this connection has weight. It carries meaning. And meaning takes time to unfold properly. God says, "My child, some nights they wonder if you already know. If you can feel them thinking of you. If the quiet pull you feel is the same one they feel." And the truth is, yes. You do feel it. That unexplained warmth. That sudden stillness. That sense of being remembered. You feel it because connection is not one-sided. It flows where there is openness. And you have been open without losing yourself. God says, "My child, this bond has survived silence because it was never built on noise. It was built on recognition. Recognition does not fade when communication pauses. It waits. It observes. It matures. And that is what has been happening all this time. Not stagnation. Maturity. God says, "My child, there will come a night when they realize something unmistakable. That thinking of you is no longer enough. That feeling you in silence is no longer sufficient. That truth asks to be lived, not just felt. That night will not be dramatic. It will be clear, calm, resolute. And from that clarity, action will follow naturally.